E-A-T-L-E-S, Jody Mack, the legendary sports talker, joins forces with NFL insider John McMullen. Start your morning with Johnny Mack and Jody Mack across the JAKIB Media Network.
And welcome in, everyone, to a special edition of Football 24/7 with John McMullen as we broadcast across the JAKIB Media Network. John, we come right to you first out of the block today at the press conference, the much-anticipated press conference, the much-awaited press conference, the press conference that was supposed to provide all the answers. Did we get them today, my friend?
As far as Carson Wentz goes, Krause, yeah, I think we did. I mean, it's pretty clear what happened, and both sides, by the way, because Carson had his introductory press conference in Indianapolis, by the way, about the same time. Both sides took the high road. I think that was kind of expected, but Howie Roseman did admit, and when I did start off the press conference, that was the question. It did kind of admit, I said, what changed? What changed from the day after the season when you were talking about it would be like losing a finger when you said you couldn't imagine being without him, to the trade. And he basically said conversations with Carson and his agent, Ryan Tollner, and the fact that he wanted out. He wanted a new start. And from the Eagles' perspective, they ultimately made the decision that it's better to move on, take your medicine in the short run rather than have a disgruntled situation in the locker room again. You saw how bad it was last year, Krause, with the quarterbacks. Remember, you're bringing back Jalen Hurts, and if Carson Wentz is back, you're going to have that disconnect among some players like Jalen Hurts, some players like Carson Wentz. Just wouldn't have been a good situation.
John, what was the dynamic like for everyone so they understand what it was? There you have Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni sharing the platform via Zoom, but sharing the platform. How did that play out?
Well, it's not the first time. The Eagles have done these sort of dual press conferences during, as we get the lead up to the draft. You'll see Howie and Andy Weidel and Nick Sirianni. You'll have sort of a three-man kind of situation. And through the draft, Jeffrey Lurie has spoken in the past with Howie Roseman. Howie's done it with Doug Peterson. So it's sort of that range, and this was the start of the new league year press conference. So typically in years past, that would be Howie and Doug Peterson. And generally, because Howie speaks so rarely, he gets most of the questions. And that is basically out of necessity because, ultimately when you get into the season, you get the head coach multi times a week. So we'll get to talk to Nick Sirianni a heck of a lot. We only get Howie a couple times a year, so you have to take advantage of it.
I guess my reason for asking the question, the one impression that Nick Sirianni made to the Philadelphia market in some circles wasn't very good. And I guess I'm curious, not seeing today's press conference, as to was there a dynamic that appeared to be cohesive? Was there a dynamic that Nick appeared to be more assertive, where, yes, he now feels a few months later that he's in control of the roster and all of those dynamics? Or was it just a back and forth?
It was a back and forth. He doesn't have that opportunity, again, because most people are going to direct their questions to Howie because it's sort of like Howie season in the season. When the regular season's going on, it tends to be the head coach, and in the past it's been Doug Peterson. It'll be that way with Nick Sirianni. When you get to the off season, Howie's making the decisions. Howie's signing the contracts. He's making the draft choices. So he's got a bigger imprint on things, but the head coach has got to be involved as well. I do think Nick was a lot more comfortable today. You could see than his introductory press conference. I think he was a little bit nervous. He showed a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. I think Eagles fans are going to like that. I think, my one critique from a communication standpoint, he goes in heavy with the enthusiasm. So he gets you for about a minute, and then he keeps going. He's got to learn to cut it off because he starts to wander at the end.
Do you think, John, from today's presser, there was any earth-shattering answers that were discovered? A lot of scuttle, a lot of speculation, a lot of conversation around the region. Did we learn anything today?
I don't think there was a smoking gun, but if I go back to, so many of us, and I'll put myself in this camp, is said, why would the Eagles, why would Jeffrey Lurie approve $33.8 million in dead money when the previous NFL record was $22.2 million? That's a big leap. That is a big kick up in that record. And that's a precedent they didn't want to set. And I think we got that answer. And that answer was because they didn't have any other option. I think ultimately, if Carson would have agreed to the reclamation project, if he would have agreed to say, okay, let's try this thing, I want to give it another try, he would still be here. He would still be the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. From Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman's perspective, they ate that money because they felt they had to. They felt they had no other option.
Football 24/7 with John McMullen. You'll hear a lot more about today's press conference. You'll hear John tonight on The Fix with Ryan Rothstein. You'll hear him tomorrow on The Middle with Eitan Shander, Harry Mays, and Barrett Brooks. And you'll hear him, of course, with a full hour on Saturday on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. The John Show, Extending the Play, will cover it in detail. John, I want to ask you, since you're talking about money and the cap hit and everything else, any conversation on the press conference today about free agent activity? I almost feel, and this is just a gut feeling, this isn't a statement of being in the know, I almost feel like the Eagles are broke. Like they're not spending any money. There's no conversation other than a Deshaun Watson story. Is this team not looking to be active at all?
Well, they're not going to be active. I mean, they're not broke. The organization makes a lot of money, but you do have a salary cap, and you're under those constraints. And they're now paying $34 million of a $182 million salary cap for a player who's not playing for them. So that is dramatic. And that's that record-setting dead hit that I mentioned, and that's why other teams haven't done it. Other teams won't go down that route and eat that much money because in the short term, in what will be the 2021 season, it hamstrings the Eagles. They can't do a lot of things in free agency. They're typically the team. I wrote on Philly Voice today about the rumors, and the rumors surrounding Deshaun Watson. Jason La Canfora brought up him. That was the way the NFL worked. No matter who the player was, and I'm sure you've heard this as well, Krause, that they would say blah, blah, blah. Maybe the Giants are interested, the Ravens are interested, whoever it was, and then came, and the Eagles. Because the Eagles were always involved, always making phone calls, always keeping abreast on the biggest name players and trying to get involved and trying to be in that mix because that's Howie's aggressive nature. Because of the Carson Wentz contract, because it went sideways, because they were forced to trade him, they don't have the ability to do that because they're up against it from a salary cap standpoint. So this season, it's shopping at the Walmart clearance aisle. and they're hoping to clean it up and be back in the game, so to speak, next season.
Despite trying to move on and close the book on Carson Wentz, we just can't seem to get past Carson Wentz. It's almost like deja vu all over again. Carson Wentz goes second pick in the draft back in 2016. Fast forward, we're going into the 2021 draft. The top 10 or 12 picks or whatever are stocked with great quarterbacks, or certainly quarterbacks that are going to fall somewhere in there, and the Eagles are right in the middle of it. Any conversation or chatter today about what the Eagles will do right now with their pick? I'm sure he's not going to come out and say anything, but did you get any inclination perhaps from Sirianni about that, about the upcoming draft?
Well, Nick doesn't have any power when it comes to taking the picks. I mean, obviously you want to get the head coach's input, but similar to when Doug was here and Doug was the head coach, how he makes the draft choices. Now, any good general manager is going to want to get players that fit in, which is with his coaching staff scheme and players his coaching staff will want. So that's sort of part of the job, but ultimately it is Howie's job. And he did say, because there was that big Chris Mortensen report that said Jeffrey Lurie told his personnel people to build around Jalen Hurts. So don't think about taking a quarterback at number 6. Howie did say that's not true. The Eagles will be doing their due diligence with all the quarterbacks, whether it's Justin Fields or Trey Lance or Mac Jones. They're not going to be in a position to get Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson, but so they're going to do their due diligence. Now, I never thought it was prudent for Jeffrey Lurie, because you don't want to give away your strategy, Krause. It makes no sense. So, in other words, you don't want teams behind you thinking, okay, Philadelphia's not taking a quarterback, so we don't have to make a move up, or because if you think about it, Carolina, for instance, say at number 8, well, they want a quarterback. And if they know Philadelphia's not taking one, well, there's no desire to move up. And why does that help the Eagles? Well, it would help the Eagles because that means one of the position players they might want, whether it's Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts, they might fall because other teams are jumping up to take quarterbacks. So from a strategy standpoint, Jeffrey Lurie's decree never made sense, and I think Howie's trying to clean that up.
Well, John, I'm hoping for Kyle Pitt and then the rest of the 11 picks or 10 picks remaining in the draft. I'm hoping for 6 or 7 big uglies, 6 or 7 offensive linemen, and then maybe backfill with a couple of DBs and pick up some receiver talent, and let's try and compete next year. I don't know if that's a reality or if 2021 is really going to be as bad as we think.
Well, that's a lot of offensive linemen, but they do. I mean, that's what this team believes in. They believe in building on the offensive and defensive line. So you're going to see those. But I don't think it's going to be as bad for one major reason, and it is that offensive line. And there's a lot of question marks because of the injury situations of Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks and Andre Dillard. But I got to tell you, and that's a lot of ifs, and I mean, you got to put that caveat on there. If those guys are healthy, and you have Jason Kelsey as well and Isaac Seumalo, all of a sudden what was one of the league's worst offensive line turns back into one of the league's best offensive lines overnight. And if you have a good offensive line, you're not going to be a bad football team. You might not be a Super Bowl winner because you got to have a lot of other stuff, but you're not going to be terrible. So I think if you want some positive, if you want to hang your hat on something, if those guys are healthy, the Eagles are not going to be a terrible football team.
Football 24/7 with NFL insider John McMullen. Not letting you get out of here, John, without talking about Birds 365. Jody Mack and Johnny Mack getting it together Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Show debuts Monday, April 5th. Johnny Mack super excited about Birds 365.
Yeah, thrilled about it. Philadelphia crowds, whether they always say, back to the Eagles. The people are so passionate about this team, and that's what they love. And you see it, whether it's Carson Wentz leaving, whether it's Nick Sirianni coming. You see the interest. Nobody can get enough of this team. I'm thrilled to team up with Jody Mack. Obviously, he's been in this market for so many years. He and I do some hits on a different radio station as well. I think we got a good rapport. I'm really excited about the show and the title itself tells you all you need to know. Birds 365, because we've been doing this. We've been talking Eagles every day, year round. Now we're just going to expand it, and that's the reason I'm here, because the people love this team.
Great stuff from John McMullen, Football 24/7, and soon to add to the lineup, Birds 365. Great stuff today, Johnny Mack. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, Krause.
Football in Philadelphia is a lifestyle, a passion from birth, and a personal responsibility to know the game. Boo when necessary. And think about
EATLES, Eagles!
Every second of every minute of every hour of every day. Birds 365 was created for you. Jody Mack, the legendary sports talker, joins forces with NFL insider John McMullen. Birds 365. Start your morning with Johnny Mack and Jody Mack across the JAKIB Media Network. Watch it live on YouTube.